Welcome, Silke Zanker. I am so excited that we see each other again. I was just
Thank
asking where you
you.
were. So you are in Den Haag, Netherlands
Yeah,
right now, but you've not moved there, right?
partly. So I'm in between Switzerland and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how has things changed for you in the last 3 months? You know, with everything that's happened, what kind of impact has that had of your life and business?
Yeah. Like for my life, apart from that, I'm not traveling right now, which we both love. So that I really miss that. But for me personally, working not that much because I've been doing so much online before, and I'm so happy I have. But in the work itself, so working with my clients, either big corporations or also in the non-for-profit where I support my yoga school, Drew Yoga. We've within a matter of maybe a couple of days, we had to move everything online. So yoga teacher trainings, meditation weekends. So that was quite interesting. And then on the other hand, like the corporate trainings as well with Axialenza, we've been doing a lot in person, and now everything had to go online. So I think I've had the most busiest weeks I can imagine. I don't know. Some people say they were bored. I certainly have not been bored, and it's been amazing, very interesting, and also to see how when we have to because of constraints and circumstances, suddenly so many things are possible. So I
Yeah.
find that quite exciting, actually.
Yeah. So tell us how you actually had created online courses for the yoga school, but what had to change there?
Well, we had a lot of blended approaches, so partly online and then in person, and then suddenly everything had to be online. And I think the biggest aspect that had to change in my leadership work and in that work is that now it's a journey that you take people on online. It's not I'm doing one webinar, right? Because you're looking at your customer experience from beginning to end, and you need to look at that entire journey. So a lot of the how do we engage with people, how do we stay in touch, how can we build really deep human connection online, that
Mhm.
is what I've been thinking through a lot in the last few weeks and helping a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the work you're doing for corporates.
Yeah. So that's mainly leadership development and culture change. So helping leaders, whether they're corporate or whether they're seven-figure businesses that have small teams, because the moment you lead and you have a team of people, a few things are always the same. You got to lead yourself, you lead others, you have to see that the performance works on a business level, but also from a culture perspective. And that's my the core of my work is really working with leaders and helping them lead themselves and then create the cultures that help their business thrive and where people feel well and happy, and at the same time, like the deeper aspects of culture, not like what sometimes we read in the news, kind of if you give free lunch or you have a pool table somewhere. That's not culture. That's kind of outward aspect of it. But to look at really at the values and look at what do I have to do in terms of systems and processes and behaviors in my organization so that my values are expressed everywhere we go. Every touch point that a client has with a company, every email that is sent, is signals something about the culture. And that's what I help my clients with, to analyze their existing culture and also look at the gap between what we have right now, why is it working, what's not working. Because usually when someone is not happy with the results they're having, you can always trace something back to leadership, to the culture, because even if you look at systems and processes, somebody decides about them, right? So it's never only, it's the email system or it's something that we're setting up in terms of how we promote people or whatnot. It goes back to why do we do what we do and how we do it. And I help my clients analyzing that, coming up with a plan, and then executing the plan.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting.
What have you felt changed now in the last 3 months? Is there a bigger need for some culture shifts?
I think there's a bigger urgency, and many leaders ask themselves the more uncomfortable questions, maybe. So that we clearly see. But I also see a bigger need of like conversations around, how we've done it. Even 6 months ago, it doesn't work anymore, and we don't know what is the new normal, or what is around the corner, and to simply have conversations. So I've seen a much bigger need of leaders reaching out and saying, can we have a conversation? And before that, people often would reach out and say, this is a specific training I want, or I know what you want, can you help me get there? And now people reach out and say, I don't know exactly what we need and what we want. Can we work on this together?
Yeah.
And that feels more like a partnership now. I really enjoy that aspect, because I also think, in times like ours, where change is really exponential, being a leader is not about having all the answers. It's about being able to ask the right questions and to engage experts, and being part of a mastermind, and all these things that you also do in your business. I have experienced that also people in the corporate world wake up to that aspect more and more.
Yeah. And how has then the latest crisis on racism, has that changed anything in your work?
Just before I came on this call, I saw an email come in from a company saying, "Oh, do you have an off-the-shelf program on inclusion and diversity?"
Yeah.
And so yes, the need has gone up, because like we can also see many people really need to start educating themselves, and even having, starting to have the conversation. What has started to happen is, again, people ask more questions, and even within, my peers and other coaches and consultants, we start having the uncomfortable conversations. So that, like everywhere, I think that has really changed. And people are more aware of even their own choices, like people, I think, screen more like, okay, so when you have a panel, who is on the panel? Or if you I'm looking at the network of consultants I work with, is there an unconscious bias that I have not been aware of earlier, or my colleagues, and how are we working with that? Yeah.
And are companies now, do you think they will be better prepared if there is another lockdown or a second wave?
That's a really good question. I hope so. I certainly hope so. I hope that the people I work with are better prepared for that. Because I've had so many requests around, how do you work remotely? What are best practices? And in that sense, I can imagine people will be better prepared. One thing I always emphasize when I work with people is, actually, you don't really need to know what is around the corner, but what matters is how agile can you become in your thinking and in your way of adapting, because then it doesn't matter. Of course, then there'll be things in circumstances, but how much you focus on what you can control and what you can really influence. If you increase that aspect, then whatever crisis comes around the corner, you're better prepared to work with. So to answer your question, I think some companies, yes, because they're learning those lessons and have the insights, that is actually about how we think and how we behave, and how we maybe also work together across borders and across constraints, and others not, because they just reacted to whatever was happening, and they don't change their culture, or they don't change their processes or profoundly how they go about doing business.
So what is a true leader for you?
A true leader is somebody who has a has a lot of clarity around their vision, where they see themselves or their organization and even the world, because leadership doesn't exist in a box. So I think people who have a vision and who have the ability to enroll others in that. is also somebody, and you could argue maybe that's more management, but I think for true leadership, it's important that you have kind of this self-starter mentality, that you know how to be resourceful with resources that are always scarce. We never have all the time we want, all the money we want, etc. So somebody who knows how to figure things out, who is agile, but really who can involve other people in that, and helps other people feel it's your vision too. We're working on this together. We're co-creating this together. Because at the end of the day, if people can achieve great things, but by themselves, then it's not leadership. So really.
What is your opinion of the Prime Minister of New Zealand?
I'd love to meet her. That's my opinion. I'd love to meet her. I admire her courage. Yeah. Just her way of doing things differently. And so now I don't have an opinion on her political way of leading, but like even how she uses social media and how she's able to tap into different aspects of society and really connect with people where they're at. I absolutely admire that. So yeah.
How can someone when you see someone like her, you're like, oh, she's doing a great job. How does someone train to do that themselves if they don't feel, oh, this is not my natural way of being?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I think, is really the importance of surrounding yourself with people that can help you see what you can't see yourself, and that also can help you stay accountable to whatever you set out that you want to change. So let's say she has a communication style that somebody aspires to, or just a way of also making bold choices. So now if you're part of a mastermind, or you have a mentor, or you work with somebody and you say, this is what I'm working on, this is what I want, can you guys help me get there? So I think that is very important, the people we surround ourselves with. And then secondly, to break it down and to make it really, applicable for myself. So if I say there's something I want to model that she has, to really break it down and say, what would that look like in my life? So in my leadership, maybe I have a small team. Where could I make more, bolder choices? Or how could I change my communication? Maybe I could send my team videos from time to time instead of an email with, an order or a request that I have. So to take something, because if we put people on a pedestal, then it's very difficult to reach ever, because then our mind will play tricks on us. But to break it down and just say, there's a small aspect in what she does that I like. How can I implement that today in my work and in my life? And then have a feedback loop. So I'm a big fan of working on one thing at a time, on one habit change at a time, and then reflect on it and literally think about the day and see, like, how can I show up today more courageous? And then in the evening, check yourself and look at, so how did that work, and where did it work, and where would I like to do it differently tomorrow?
So you mentioned yoga and leadership. How does this come together? I know you, but maybe for someone watching, they're like, she works with a yoga school, and then she works with startups and leaders and companies. How does that fit together?
Yeah, it fits together because I don't place these things in different worlds. So, and that has been part of my journey. It's been a struggle for like many years, where I was like, oh, I'm partly in this world, partly in that world. How can I bring these together? And I heard some people also on your hot seats having similar questions, but I think it works because I went to the essence of what it is about for me, and the essence is about self-leadership, having more compassion, bringing about change for people, and really making a difference and helping people amplify their impact in the world through contribution and leadership. And that essence I can apply no matter where I go. And I often, when I'm in the corporate world, I just show up the same way. I'm not a different person. So I may choose some of the some of the language maybe differently. So often when I'm with leaders, I get them to do a focusing exercise, and I don't necessarily call it meditation. It depends on the company. So I say, let's do something to improve your performance. We're going to practice how to concentrate and focus. And before you know it, we've done 10 minutes of meditation.
Yeah.
And so I adapt to, to the environment, but the essence of what I teach and what I share with people is the same.
Do you get them to do yoga too?
Yes. Yes. Well, online is a bit more difficult, but actually, so often it depends. If I have like let's say a 4 or 5 day training with people, then yeah, we do something to welcome the morning, welcome the day, and then we may go for a walk one day, and the other day we do some yoga and maybe some reflection or some exchange. So I try to make it really fun and different, so it doesn't have the stereotype of now you're in a yoga class, because it's not about that. It's about what yoga does for us, and it has to work for us wherever we are. Yeah.
So you said you position this what the company that you work for different type of leadership training. It's basically leadership training. Like a big company can choose from different leadership trainings. Why do they go to you?
Yeah. So in Axialand, what we do is really mainly around helping companies become, lead a business in a conscious way and create cultures that enable them to do exactly that, like high performing conscious cultures. So a part of the business is about training, but a big part of the business is actually about working with the leadership and saying, so how do you have to work differently with your teams? So, a lot is coaching, a lot is consulting around it to create the culture you would like. And training is one aspect of it, but as we know, like for behavior change, a lot is not about training. The training is one part, and then you maybe have the skill or you have the awareness, but then you have to implement it. And so whether I work with people one-on-one and it's a small company or it's a corporation, it's really important to look at the aspect of now what happens when people are back at work or when I'm in my environment. And that's why I love really going into the business with people. And literally, sometimes with some companies we have office hours, and then people can just stop by or call, or you help them implement what they've just learned, and then they come with their team, and so I work with the team. So it's it's the, let's say, the person who's responsible for the team, and there are 2 or 3 employees, and then we say, okay, so you have your meeting, I sit in the meeting, and from time to time I help them just apply a different way of being more curious, or and asking questions of each other, or being really precise with making commitments so that everybody knows what we've just committed to and what a good commitment looks like. That I have found is a very powerful way of working with people, because I'm interested in sustainable change. I mean, you can create a buzz in the short term, but I'd love to see my clients after 10 years and they know how to do these things themselves, and they have sustainable success.
Yeah. So how does this work during COVID? You've not been able to go into the office and do it there. So you've been doing it on Zoom?
Yeah. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever platform you choose. But yeah. And it has its challenges, but also its advantages. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the tools are just the tools, and it's up to us what we do with them. So if we have the awareness that if you do something on Zoom and people maybe are on Zoom for the whole day, that they may be more tired or tired differently after 4 or 5 hours, and that you have to maybe have meetings in a shorter way, or you prepare them better, hopefully. Yeah. I think that really matters when we're online. So yeah, it's totally possible to do that, work online. Yeah.
So what about personally? How do you feel this has been for you? This also quarantine and all that stuff. Like what's been going on in your head?
Yeah. I have found for me personally, in particular in the beginning, because I was so busy, I didn't really have a lot of time to think about things. But I've had a lot of actually people I know that even had COVID or have it, and really went through quite difficult times.
Yeah.
So it brought a lot of appreciation for my life and for health, and for just being so privileged. But it also brought the absolute need and desire to simplify. So I have simplified a lot. I really, and you could say, yes, Marie Kondoed the house, but that's not necessarily what I mean. But really looked at what is essential in my life. What are the things that matter? What is actually there? But I haven't even looked at it and said, is that still the friendship and the relationship that I want to invest time in? Is this an aspect in my business that I still want? So, I mean, I went through everything, my social media. I was like, do I really need to be part of 20 different groups? And so I have simplified a lot. And I've looked a lot at, and that's not always comfortable, looked at how how much agency, how much responsibility do I take for how I feel every day and how I show up? Because there's not much I can do about COVID in my personal environment, maybe, but I can look at how much do I invest in staying healthy and fit and and bright and joyful, and so some days it's easier, some days it's not, but I really felt, and those are also the conversations I have with my clients and my friends, to always look at and what can we do differently, and how what we can do to make this an enjoyable time, a time where I look back. So in like a year and 2 years, I want to look back on this time and know I've made the most out of it, and I've really gotten ahead in my business and in my life, because it's a remarkable time. We'll all remember it, right?
Yeah, it's a historic moment, and I've been giving my clients the exercise of writing the story of what are you going to share with your descendants.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want to share that I've helped people get through this time in a joyful way, by making a difference, by not only looking at themselves but making a contribution, and that I was able to do that while being healthy, full of energy, and so it's great to always look at how do we want to remember how we've shown up, and what we leave behind.
Yeah, you can write the story up front, and then you can basically live through it and tell it afterwards. But what about what's next? What's the next? What do you see coming? What will obviously not go back to the world the way it was before.
Yeah.
What changes do you see for your life and business?
Yeah. So in my one-to-one work, I think a big part of the changes is so much is possible online. And I think I really want to use those opportunities to the maximum, but still have in-person events and, coming together with people, but making them really something special. I think it'll be much harder to get people together to something just because, you have to fly to have a meeting somewhere. No, but if you go somewhere, you invest resources, you travel, it needs to be worth it. So that's how I see every aspect in my life, where I work with people, change to make the in-person events really high level in sense of experience, lots of beauty, lots of adventure, and really value the aspect that we're together, and share information in ways that you can share information easily online, and and look at it more like a journey, like I said earlier. So I see that changing, but I also, and I've done that before. I really, I've made a strong choice a few years ago that the people I work with, and it's just been reconfirmed, the people I work with are really people that are here to make a positive difference to other people, and to the planet, and so I just feel like so much passion and desire to continue supporting these people. And it doesn't matter where they are, because it doesn't matter how much money you have or whether you have a certain role or not. It's like what lives in somebody's heart and how willing they are to show up and do the work, because it is work. And so those are the people that I think that it has really changed for me. I don't want to waste time. I want the people who like you, who start a movement, who inspire others, and
That makes a lot of sense, because we are not gonna want to waste any time. It's almost like, okay, here's the clarity on the ideal client and also your own values. So luckily you already have those clients, but you're possibly even clearer on who that person is.
I am. Yeah, I am. And when I look back over the years, the people where I really felt like when I've worked with them, they have made a shift and they've kept it. Those are the ones that come to mind when I now think about them, and I'm in touch with them, or I see on the internet what they do, and that fills me with joy. And so I'm really clear on that, and I say that very clearly when I communicate. And so yeah, and like what I hear you say to a lot of your clients, and I've been one of your clients too in the past. I think I want to create more resources for people who maybe don't want to or can't afford working with me in person. So there is an aspect where I also feel I have an obligation to share what I know and share my experience more widely. But so that's a good insight that I've had in the last few weeks or so.
Okay, tell us where to sign up.
Yeah, well, silkezanker.com. So my first name, last name.
Yeah.
And being more out there and speaking and sharing with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Silke. People know how to connect with you. You've shared your website. We are doing a weekly YouTube live, connecting with people like Silke and figuring out what have you been going through, what's happening next. And thank you so much for sharing. It's been great to reconnect and see you again. I love reconnecting with everyone I've worked with. And Silke, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Sigrun. See you too. Bye.